Well, hello, YouTube friends. It's Uncivil Law. Hope you're doing good. I'm having a good Thanksgiving, and I thought we'd just sit here and we would chat for a little bit because my ability to stream YouTube and share at the same time is not going well. So we'll see who shows up, and we'll just chat for a little bit, I guess. No one's here yet. Hello, hello. Oh, the mirror. How are you doing? We're just gonna sit here and chat for a little bit. I want to stream something. Good morning, Mermaid Bacon. Mermaid Bacon does sound. Is Mermaid Bacon best bacon? I don't know. Is that bacon made by mermaids or of mermaids? That's the real question. Steeled Rocco. Hello, how are you doing? Justin Martin. OKC Houston in the house. Glad to have you there. Improv with Lions. Good afternoon. I have done improv. I've never done it with lions. Hunter Ellis, I'm only here for a few minutes. That's okay. I'm only here for a few minutes too. We were trying to figure out how to do a screen share from a mobile device and be able to see chat at the same time on the same device, and it wasn't happening. My efforts were thwarted. Um, I have an iPhone. It's the what is it? The iPhone SE2, I guess it's called. And yeah, I can stream the screen that I'm looking at, but I can't see chat at the same time. I see a wine sign you upvote. Fantastic. Hello, Tao is used. Nice to have you here. Yeah, so I was trying to figure out how to be able to screen share the document I was looking at and see the chat at the same time. And I couldn't do it because I don't know. I couldn't figure it out on iOS. Is Viva and Barnes streaming? I think they were streaming. I wonder what Barnes is saying about Amy Coney Barrett right now. That might be interesting because Barnes was particularly skeptical of Amy Coney Barrett, as I'm sure many of you will recall. And Barnes was saying that he thought Amy Coney Barrett would be a pro lockdown. I mean, the way Barnes tells it, but this is Barnes' most notable characteristic is he expressed everything in extremes. And so the way he tells it, he thought Amy Coney Barrett would uphold every government regulation, every lockdown order, and of course she sided with the majority in the New York decision. So I wonder what Barnes is saying about Amy Coney Barrett now. Um, it's a little bit premature to really be able to say anything about Amy Coney Barrett in terms of where we're going, but it'll be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see what Barnes has to say about Amy Coney Barrett because he said, and I don't think I'm putting words in his mouth too much, but he said that he thought Amy Coney Barrett would support every lockdown and would approve every government restriction and so forth and so on, and apparently not so much because she sided with the majority. Now you could read that a whole bunch of ways, so you don't necessarily have to read that as being emblematic of broader trends. But the way he told the story, there'd be nothing but Amy Coney Barrett upholding every lockdown, citing Jacobson for the rest of time. The Supreme Court came down with a decision 5-4 per Kerm decision, striking down some of the COVID restrictions as it relates to churches in New York. And I haven't read the opinion yet because I was planning on reading it live with you and discussing it, as we do, but I can't be able to do it. I haven't been able to find out a way to do it. So I have an iPhone, and I don't know if Android would be any better in this respect, because what I really need is like multiple layers or something. But I need to be a way to be. I can stream my screen, so I can stream the screen. I can stream the document I'm reading, but I can't see the chat. And the problem there is one, I'm getting no feedback. And two, if for any reason the stream pops out, I have no idea. So I might be talking to a camera with nothing, no one seeing it for an hour, half an hour, hour and a half, and then realize nothing happened and get kind of pissed off, as you'd imagine, right? So Yeah, depending on Android device, you can split the screen. That's true. Yeah, you can split the screen on a lot of Android devices. Not so much apparently on the iOS SE2. So yeah, I haven't read the decision yet. Uh, I think Doggo streams are a good alternative at times. It might be easier to get some Doggos than to deal with the eye struggle. Yeah, you need a PC with mobile screens. My main PC doesn't have mobile screens. It just has one really big screen. So I use a second phone. I only have one phone. I don't have a second phone. I suppose I could borrow my mom's iPad, and then I could like glance down every once in a while and see how the chat's looking. I could do that. I'm not having PC issues. I'm just not at my PC. I'm not at my house. I'm visiting my parents, so all I have is a mobile device right now. Yeah, yeah. So I'm not at my computer. My yeah. I'm not in Texas right now. Yeah. I wonder if I can borrow my mom's iPad, and then I could glance down at once every once in a while and see how that's going. So maybe I'll give that a go. Maybe I'll ask my mom if I can borrow her iPad, and that way I can see the stream. It will be delayed, but at least I'll be able to get some sort of feedback. Yeah, we had a great Thanksgiving. My brother just got a dog relatively recently. I think the dog is now 16 weeks old, something like that. Um, but anyways, my brother and his dog were visiting my parents up here in the mountains. This dog is some sort of mixed breed, kind of mutt thing. But anyways, the dog was out and about, snicking its nose all the places as it doesn't belong, and it got bit by a copperhead snake. So my brother had to rush it down to the vet yesterday, Thanksgiving Day, in the afternoon, so that they could get anti venom for my brother's dog. So that was my Thanksgiving, dealing with the copperhead who bit my brother's dog on the nose. It didn't go well. I do not live with my parents now. I'm just visiting my parents right now. This was where I was filming for like 2 months. So you might remember like New Year's Eve last year, I was filming in a kind of a blank room. So this is the same place I was doing those streams for like 2 months, where I was transitioning from one place to another. So for like 2 months, I was living here as I was transitioning from DC to Austin because it was convenient for logistics purposes. But no, I don't live here. I'm just visiting right now. Yeah. So yeah, the vet on Thanksgiving was apparently somewhat expensive. Yeah. So that's what's going on there. But the dog is fine. The dog is fine. It's back from the vet now. So that was yesterday. It's back from the vet, and the dog is being a dog. So it all went well. All ended well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Barnes is saying about how expensive was that little adventure. I haven't gotten the full breakdown of the bill. I think the anti venom was like $700 by itself. So probably with doctor's time and stuff like that, probably over $1,000, something like that. So I mean, if you had to do math in your head, something like that, yeah. Yeah, not super good there. But other than that, it's good. It's also my first time meeting my brother's fiance. They've been dating, of course, for a while, and they've even been engaged for a while. But I've never met him before. I never met her before. So this is my first chance getting to meet her. So that's going okay, I guess. And it's always good to see my parents because my parents and I get along really, really well. Uh, we have a really good relationship. My parents say hi, by the way. They like all the nice things that you say about me from time to time. So yeah, good times. What are my opinion on people taking other wild animals? I don't really have a strong opinion, one way or another. My only concerns are pragmatic. That you can actually supply the animal's needs and to the extent that it's a danger to others, that you're being suitable in terms of protecting people from any hazards. So I have no particular thoughts on people taking animals other than dogs as pets. Just make sure they're taken care of, and to the extent they're a threat to others, then make sure they're protected. How are the current events discussions over the dinner table? Pretty fine. Not that bad. We haven't really gotten into that. Thank you for the $5 super chat. That's super appreciated. My last trip to the vet was cost $2,000. That seems very plausible. Yeah. You guys want to see some mountain views where my parents live? As I'm sure you guys know, Austin does not have a lot of mountains. So I can show you some mountain views, so we can see a little bit what's going on here. All right, hold on. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, so this is my parents' home. Little in the woods, kind of not near anything. Yeah. So yeah, this is where my parents live. Hi Nick, by the way. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I guess I don't know if you may triangulate my location. I mean, that'll be a little bit hard. I mean, because you can do that if you had buildings and stuff. But if you can triangulate that location based on video alone, I guess it's possible. The 4chan people know no bounds. It's well, we know what time of day it is, and so you recognize that particular tree. That's nice. Yeah, you recognize that particular tree. That's good. Sun position in the mountains, sure. Yeah, if you can get enough details to figure out exactly, it's I know exactly what time of day it is, so I can triangulate the sun and figure out the shadows and know exactly where you are and do image recognition on the mountains. Good times. Yeah. Is that a play in the area? A little bit. Why did Barnes throw Linwood under the bus? Everyone talks about he knows is insane. Chemtrails, yeah. Robert Barnes' principal trait is he expresses everything in very sort of extreme terms, and so it makes it difficult to know. It makes it difficult to know what really, at least in my view, it makes it difficult because he expresses everything very unnuanced and kind of extreme, and he always expresses it with absolutely no doubt in his voice at all. And I understand that from a position of advocacy, right? I understand that as an advocate. Although even there, I'm a little less. I wouldn't go quite as far as he does, even as an advocate, because I think it runs into problems. But at least I understand it in advocacy. But when he's doing things online and he's talking to people, it's very talking headsy in a lot of ways, because this is kind of a notable quality of the talking heads is that they do the same thing where they express everything. Listen to someone from the Trump campaign, or listen to someone from the Biden campaign, or any campaign really. They tend to express things in very, very confidently, and without a lot of nuance. And things are usually more complicated than that. And so I find Barnes to be of that same character. And so I don't know what's real sometimes. It's how much is real in terms of what he really thinks. So when he's throwing Linwood under the bus, it's I know that he thinks Sally Yates is corrupt. We've got that down. So we're not allowed to doubt there. But when he's throwing Linwood under the bus, for example, how much does he really believe what he's saying? Does he really believe it when he's saying it? It's when he was saying about Amy Coney Barrett and saying, and again, I don't think I'm putting words in his mouth, but when he was saying that Amy Coney Barrett would be state friendly, government friendly, and the way he sort of told the tale, at least the way I heard him tell the tale, was that they would support every lockdown, support every restriction. It'd be nothing but citing Jacobson for the rest of time. Amy Coney Barrett, I think this might be an exaggeration. Amy Coney Barrett would be, sticking the needles in all of our arms, herself. And so it'd be very interesting to see what, if any, his opinion has changed based on her joining the majority opinion in this New York case. It'd be interesting to see if he's a little bit more moderated, or if he wants to swing completely the other way, or if he wants to be a little bit more, if he just wants to be dismissive of it. And I think you can be dismissive of it legitimately, right? It's a one-off. So does it really speak to anything more globally? Nah, probably not. It's a little bit hard, but it's like my problem with Robert is he expresses everything with no nuance, and he should know very well the law is very, very complicated. So it's a little bit enemy. It's a little bit annoying sometimes. He expresses things like a storyteller. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This particular presentation makes me think Uncivil is going to burst into Alex Jones. Probably not today. He does express things like a storyteller. That's true. The critique of Robert Barnes is reflective of the Dickensian debt collection. That's cute. Oh yeah, and I was watching some of your stream, Nick, dealing with the quote unquote Kraken, and trying to deal with that stuff, and you're trying to undoom pill a little bit, and I had a sneaking suspicion that you were just trying to. I got the sneaking impression that you were just trying to give them a little bit of hope, even if it's a little bit false, because you've been doom pilling for so long. It's like, well, let me give them something they want to hear, and let's pretend that it's more significant than it is. So I don't know if I was reading into it too much. While I was watching you cover that, I was like, I think maybe he's covering this in a way to give them a moment's hope before he re-doom pills. And you sort of alluded to that when you said, I'm collecting all the doom pills, and then you said it's not because I won't shove them down your throat later. So I was like, yeah, that's kind of probably what's going on. So what's going on? The Pennsylvania court is supposed to be doing their hearing today, right? On the finding of facts or stuff. That's supposed to be happening at some point today, right? It's 2:00 in the East Coast. Have they done it already? I'm just watching the show. This case has some differences than the Lynn Woods. We'll see if it goes further. I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Yeah. The one that caught my attention was when Rudy Giuliani was saying at the Pennsylvania Senate hearing that he said there were 700,000 more mail-in ballots received than were sent out. And okay, I don't know if that's true or not. He was basing it off different numbers, right? So he's basing it. The way he said it is he was basing it off some number that I think was on the Secretary of State's website until the day before the hearing. And so he said there was a 700,000 gap. So what amounts for that? I mean, that's a really good question, right? So what was the number sent? What was the number received? And if the number received is, 700,000 more than the number sent, I'd love to hear an explanation for that. That makes sense. That would be the kind of fact. That would be the kind of fact that, if true, would be the kind of thing that would make the lawsuits that they're looking for make sense. That would be the kind of thing that would make sense. That would allow these lawsuits to go forward. So when I said, like, on Nick's stream 2 or 3 days ago or whatever it was, that I had a hard time imagining a lawsuit that could be created that would do what it needs to do, this kind of fact, if true, would be the kind of fact that would help that kind of lawsuit go forward. So, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if the numbers were misreported, but I don't know if the state has an explanation that makes sense. But if that's the kind of fact that, if true, would get my attention. So, It started at 11:30, or it was 12. So yeah, probably about 2 hours in it, more less. They have a hearing to determine if they actually amended the Constitution, which is why an evidentiary hearing is needed for it. That's true. I live in Texas now. You like an explanation? Is that they don't know how to keep count? That might very well be true. That might very well be true. I used to live in Virginia, but I live in Texas now. Nate the lawyer says, lol, these election lawsuits again. Nate, I'm roughly with you, man. I mean, we've had this discussion before, right? We kind of think most of these lawsuits aren't going anywhere. And at least most of them haven't, because they haven't had the facts that they need, at least so far, to get where they need to be. And I was like, I don't see how you get to where you want to be. And then I can't even imagine what a lawsuit, how you would get to where you want to be. And they said, well, here's a fact. I'm like, okay, well, that fact, if true, is helpful in that domain. So, you know, have I considered a second monitor? Eh. Nick says, only election losses for the next 4 years. Cracking hype. I love it. That's funny. Yeah, Nate and Nick can have a fight over in my channel. That's fun. Oh man. Yeah. So we'll see if the hearing goes anywhere. If the hearing goes anywhere, we'll cover tonight. I have to get up 3 monitors. Right now, I just have one monitor. I just have a 42-inch TV as a monitor. I've got a 42-inch 4K TV as my monitor. It works great. 42 inches is a lot of screen real estate, man. So it's one big screen. You know? It works great. More lawsuits means more content. I agree. I do live in Texas. I'm not right there right now, though. Obviously. More lawsuits, more content. Yeah. Need at least 7 monitors. That's what she said. Nice. There's always a follow-up on the indictments of the BLM riders. Yeah, we'll definitely have to follow up on that too. So no one won the Sullivan bet? No one won the Sullivan bet. Assuming it was a global pardon. I still haven't actually seen the pardon. But assuming it's a global pardon, then no one wins the bet. Unless even if it's a valid pardon, that the judge still doesn't dismiss it anyway. In which case, so even if it's a valid pardon, if Sullivan still doesn't dismiss, I'm going to demand payment from Viva, because I feel like I have to win the bet at that point. So we're going to say, yeah, he won't dismiss. If he doesn't dismiss, even in the face of a valid pardon, which I'm not exactly putting outside the realm of possibility because of Judge Sullivan, so he can't do it, but will he do it anyway? Maybe. We all predicted the pardon, yeah. It's tough watching me with Viva and Barnes live. I understand. Yeah. So yeah, if the judge still dismiss, I'm going to demand payment, because I was definitely right at that point, right? It's like the judge won't dismiss. We kind of said if there's a pardon, we call off the bat. But if this is a global pardon and he still doesn't dismiss anyway, I'm gonna unilaterally reinstitute the bet and demand payment. So yeah. If Mr. Biden gets confirmed, how long do you think he'll remain president before he gets pushed aside by Kamala? Well, Kamala's incentives are to be at least 2 years, and so Kamala's incentives are for Joe Biden to be president until at least 12:15 p.m. Eastern time on January the 20th of 2023. That's Kamala's incentives. So at least 2 years would be the prediction, I think. Nate the lawyer says he has no choice. The pardon removes jurisdiction. Nate, I'm well aware of that. I'm 100% well aware of that he has no jurisdiction. I understand that. You understand that. No one is confused. That was my point, Nate. That was my point. Yes, you're absolutely correct. He can't not dismiss it at that point because he doesn't have jurisdiction. We're all 100% clear on the law. The question is, will he dismiss it even though he literally has no choice because he literally has no subject matter jurisdiction? So he has no choice, but will he do it anyway? That was my point. I am well aware of the legal, well aware of the law, but what is the probability that despite literally all that, Judge Sullivan says, you know what, how about no, and forces the Court of Appeals to shove it down his throat or something for that one last bit taste of moral victory? I think the odds are non-zero. That's what I'm going with. I think despite the fact he has literally no choice, and despite the fact he has literally no jurisdiction, that there is a non-zero chance he says, the hell with it, and makes the Court of Appeals shove it down his throat for that one last bit of moral victory against Orange Man Bad. I think that's a non-zero probability. And I base that on of all the things Judge Sullivan has done up to this point. You know? That's where I'm going. So yeah, I was definitely in no sense confused about the law. Yeah. I'm completely with you. Judge Sullivan also tried to come out with some sort of legal crap about how it's not really a valid pardon because Trump is a co-conspirator and he's his own judge and he doesn't have the power to pardon and blah, blah, blah. I could definitely see that too. Judge Sullivan trying to institute some crap about why Donald Trump can't pardon Flynn. That might be fun. I know the law. You know the law. We are not confused. Does that mean that Sullivan will actually follow the law, or does he not dismiss because Trump can't actually pardon Flynn because, I don't know, co-conspirator, corrupt president, not really president, he's acting as his own judge, Orange Man Bad, blah, blah, blah. You know? Yeah. It would be, yeah. I think Nick has it right. It'd be super fun to watch him try. It would be super fun to watch him try. Yeah. Let me just completely ignore all the law. That's a good one, right? Why we don't need some pesky law. Kamal's incentives are for 2 years. And the reason her incentives are for 2 years is because the Constitution says you can't be president for more than 10, right? So if she serves only half of the term, then she could theoretically run for president for two more times. So Kamala's incentives are for Biden to be president for at least 2 years, and then get Biden. Hey Biden, how'd you like to sign this paper? Don't worry about what 3 USC 20 is. Don't worry about it. Just sign it. And then because he signed it, then she becomes president, and because she'd only be president for 2 years, she can run for 2 more elections. So that's where her incentives are. Do you think Trump will resign January 19th so Pence can pardon him? I don't know. I think Trump's legal liability for anything he did as president is pretty thin. Because of being president, he has absolute immunity for the things that he did that were within his role as president. So his criminal liability under federal law for anything that happened in the last 4 years would only extend to things that were not within his capacity as president. And because his capacity as president is, pretty expansive, because it's all the executive power, then I think the president's liability for things in the last 4 years is pretty thin. So his only liability would be things for personal, it would be things that were personal capacity, which would be things like filing taxes or other things like that. But he wouldn't have any criminal liability, I don't think, for anything that he did relating to anything that happened in office. So for like obstruction of justice, even assuming that he could obstruct justice, which I'm not even sure is hypothetically possible, but assuming he could, then he'd still have absolute immunity anyway. So I don't think he has any. So what's the probability that Pence pardons him? I don't know. But I don't think he has much exposure from federal law for the last 4 years. Trump's exposure is much greater in state courts, particularly in New York, because his businesses were based in New York, like the Trump Foundation was in New York, and other things that were run out of New York. So his greatest liability is in Manhattan. It's in New York County, the island of Manhattan in New York State. So the greatest liability would be for things that he did before he was president in New York. So his biggest threat is from the Manhattan district attorney, it seems to me. So there are not mountains in Texas now. I don't know what's happening in the Michael Kelly Place today. And there are mountains in Texas, on the west side of Texas, but not here. So what happens the first 2 years, one day, where police moves by and using 25th Amendment? Well, you can only serve president for 10 years. So if she became president from before that, presumably she can only run for one term. Yeah. Could Sullivan get disbarred for misconduct if he fails to dismiss Flynn's case? I wouldn't matter either way. It wouldn't matter either way. Could he get disbarred? Maybe. But even if he could, it wouldn't matter, because you don't have to be a member of the bar to be a judge. Being a federal judge has no requirements in the Constitution. It has none. The president can appoint literally anyone, and as long as the Senate confirms them, they're a federal judge. They don't have to be a lawyer. And if they are a lawyer and they're disbarred, it's irrelevant. I don't know how many federal judges out there even have valid law licenses. I mean, I imagine some do, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fair number who don't have law licenses because they gave them up, right? From being judges, because they don't want to do the CLE, they don't want to pay the continuing, they don't want to pay the bar fees, right? So a lot of judges are like paying reduced fees because, they get reduced fees. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fair number of federal judges who, having been lawyers, once they become federal judges, is like, well, I don't need that anymore, and then just resign from the bar. So you don't need to be a member of the bar to be a lawyer. So yeah, could he be disbarred? Maybe. Would it matter? Nope. If you want to get rid of Sullivan, you have to impeach him. Happy belated Thanksgiving and God bless America. Thanks, James. That's nice. What happens if the electors vote Trump regardless of the results? The electors win. Now, in many states, the ability of the electors to do this is not uniform because it changes on state law. So some states don't have any penalty. Some states say you're supposed to do it and don't have any penalty. Some states say you're supposed to do it and have a very modest penalty, like $1,000. Who cares at that point? Some states will allow them to be removed and appoint other electors. But if the electors vote for Trump, Trump wins. Thank you. Sam, looking good. I appreciate that. Thank you, A. Pooty. It's nice of you. Hey, electors, yeah, they could bet on Trump to win. That'd be hilarious, kind of. Yeah. Here's a list. Here's your best remedies Well, your best remedies for getting Trump into office are political, not legal. You have a lot of political remedies. The legal remedies are a lot more sketchy. Even with the like 700,000 number, you're still asking for a lot. So, but at least you're in the right ballpark. The political remedies are a lot easier though, because you don't need like any particular burden of proof, right? You don't need to prove anything because it's political. It's not legal. So political remedies are easier because you can just do them, right? You don't need a rationale. You'd be like, that's Rich that's going to do it. So your political remedies for getting Trump into office for a second term are a lot cleaner in terms of being able to do it. So here are your political remedies. You can convince the electors, at least in states where there are no penalties, and or the ones where there are modest penalties, and or the ones where even if there are penalties that their vote counts anyway. So you get the electors, you get enough electors to vote for Trump to swing the election. Now, your problem there is pragmatic because the electors are picked by the party, right? So there's a Republican slate of electors and there's a Democrat slate of electors. So when the governor signs the paper appointing the electors, they appoint the electors that are chosen by the party. So you'd have to convince Democratic Party people to vote for Republican and get enough of them to vote that way. So that's pretty hard. So, but it's possible, right? It's possible. Get enough electors to defect to get Trump to 270 or 271. Option number 2, get the state governments to decide to just directly cast electors any way they want. Because the state legislators can ignore the vote and just cast their electors any way they want. So Pennsylvania could be like, our people voted for the Democrat, but how about Trump? That would be legal. You could get them to do that. Okay. Next up on the list, you get when the U.S. Congress meets in joint session on January the 6th to count the electoral votes. You get one member of the House and one member of the Senate to contest the votes of enough states to change it. And then presumably if you get enough, you'd be able to get it through in the House because they're voting by state delegation. You get enough in the Senate because it's Republican controlled. Even at that point it would be because Trump is still president. So so even if Biden was looking like he was going to win, Mike Pence is still president of the Senate until the 20th. So even if Kamala Harris were going to be, so if you have a 50-50 Senate right now, so assuming you lose both races in the Georgia, and you're left with a 50-50 Senate until January 20th, the tiebreaker is Pence, not Harris. So that would presumably mean that you'd be able to get them to decertify the votes. And if you get them to do that and you get below 270, then you can invoke the 12th Amendment and then you can elect Trump as president. So there's how you do that legally. Now, I'd like to take note here that while all these things I mentioned are legal, the ramifications of them would be pretty unsettling in my view. I think lots of people would view that as a very undemocratic thing to do. So me saying, but it's legal though, I don't know how much that would really help. So I can give all the legal talks on, yes, this is legal, but I think people would be very justly upset by such an outcome. And all you have to do to think about that is just put yourself the other way around, right? So just imagine it were the other way around. Just imagine that, just put everything back, just put everything in a mirror universe, right? So just put everything in a mirror universe. So every Democrat in the House is a Republican seat. Every Republican seat in the House is a Democrat seat. And every Republican seat in the Senate is a Democrat seat. And every Democrat seat in the Senate is a Republican seat. And so forth and so on. So just put everything in a mirror universe. And then imagine what would happen if Trump was, and also the votes in the election were exactly mirrored from where they are, right? So Trump would have 78 million votes in this hypothetical. And Biden would have 72 million votes in this hypothetical. And Trump would be coming in with 306 electoral votes in this hypothetical. And Biden would be coming in with his votes in this hypothetical. And so just imagine in this hypothetical universe that because Trump is so dangerous, orange man bad, that any of the things I just mentioned that the Republicans could do, the Democrats did. How do you think that would work for the Republicans? How happy do you think they would be? What do you think their reaction would be? Right? So it's like, well, me saying, well, it's legal though, I don't think the Republicans would be very satisfied with that explanation if Trump were denied a second term, because even though he won more votes and even though he won the Electoral College, at least on paper, the electors voted against him, and or the states voted against him, and or the House of Representatives and the Senate voted against him. So I don't see that going over super well in the mere alternative universe. And if it's not going over well in the mere alternative universe, then why should it go over any better in our universe? So that's a big problem. Can electors ban the election? Sure, I suppose so. Yeah, it would be nice if we didn't descend into civil war, I think a lot, yeah. I like you and watch a lot of your vids. That being said, you, like many others, hitch your wagon to Trump. Now all you have is some weird scheme that Harris is going to do this or that. I don't think I was explaining a weird scheme. I was explaining the legal implications. I wasn't saying like someone would do something. I was saying here is a thing that could happen. Right? I wasn't pitching a conspiracy. You guys understood that, right? I wasn't saying here's what I think will happen. I was saying here is things that could happen legally, that would be legal to happen. And then I was saying here is how that might manifest in our universe. And here's how it might manifest in an alternative universe. And how would the Republicans feel in the alternative universe? And how would the Democrats feel in our universe? You understand, I wasn't pitching a conspiracy theory. I wasn't saying these are things that will happen. I was saying these are things that would be legal to happen. So I wasn't like spewing conspiracies just as much as saying, here are things that would be legal. Because it's a legal education channel. Hopefully you guys picked up on that. But at least one person seems confused, which is annoying. Over under wager on how many electors ignore their respective state results and vote their conscience? I'll put the over under on 5. Although they'd probably be on the Republican side, not the Democrat side. Yeah. Yeah. Watch as a man desperately tries to defend laws anything but weird. I don't think I necessarily said it wasn't weird either. I was just saying here is the law. There are many things in law that are weird sometimes. I on my channel occasionally have said this is weird or this is a weird result. I wasn't saying it wasn't weird. I was saying this is law. It's weirdness or lack thereof in no way prevents it from being law. We can agree it's weird. It just doesn't change the legal analysis in any way. Because law is not dependent on its weird factor. Legal hypotheticals is how lawyers think things out. Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, here's some things, and then like also like factual hypotheticals, right? So I was like, okay, here's a legal hypothetical in our universe. I'm like, all right, so that's a legal hypothetical. Then I'm like, how about a factual hypothetical? Factual hypothetical. Let's put everything in mirror land, where all the Democrats are Republicans and all the Republicans are Democrats, and so forth and so on. And here's how that would play out. It's like, yeah, that's kind of, yeah, all right. Don't you know that on the internet, when you say this could happen, people assume you're currently spearheading for initiative to have it happen? Maybe. Here, maybe I need to be clear in my hypotheticals. Here is a, I don't need another word for could. Here is a thing that would be legal. And so you're saying you want that thing. Not necessarily. It's like this, it's like, yeah. I have so many friends who say they don't support they don't get Trump supporters right after insulting them. I say don't start from the premise of telling them they're racist idiots. Yeah, that would be help. That would be helpful. You know, if you're starting with they're racist idiots, that doesn't really help with the understanding. And, you know, even if they are racist idiots, it doesn't help with the understanding. And to that, I just point to the guy, what's his name? I want to say Bixby, but I feel like that's completely not right. But there's a fairly famous guy, black guy, who has essentially converted members of the Klan, lots of them. He's got their robes and everything from de-radicalizing the Klan. So even starting from the premise of they are racist idiots, you can still convince them if that's true. I mean, it's been done. People have been able to convince racist idiots that their racism is stupid. So, you know. How am I doing today? I'm doing okay. Today I have to get tested. I'm sorry to hear that. $5 from Vidian. Happy belated Thanksgiving. Thank you. They're not racist, they're white nationalists. Well, I'm not sure. Well, white nationalists would presumably be kind of racist, right? Because it's if you're basing it on race, if part of your death, like you can be a nationalist, because nationalist can imply a whole bunch of things, right? So because if you think about nationalist in like the strictest sense of the word, like the alternative is a globalist, right? So then you're just on a spectrum. So like it's not necessarily bad to be a nationalist any more than it's bad to be a globalist. It's kind of like what do you think is good in terms of, you know, nations' interactions with other nations. So you could take a more nationalist position. You know, it's better for the United States to be isolated, better for the United States to be more internally focused, you know, have less interaction with the world, be less concerned about foreign relations and less concerned about foreign involvement and just more internally focused. So you can have a more nationalist frame. Or you could have a more globalist frame. You know, it would be good for the United States to be more involved in the world. It would be good for us to have more international cooperations, more international treaties, more international partnerships, with more world homogeny, more world interaction, less friction between borders, less friction between cultures. So you can have a nationalist or a globalist perspective. So it isn't the nationalism part that's the problem. The problem is when you're saying it's white nationalism. It's like, oh, okay, so now you want to base it on racial identity. Okay, well, that seems like a problem. That seems, not for the least of reasons, as I pointed out, like trying to define what white is hard. Because, like, you know, because even the definition of what white is and what black is has changed over time. So even trying to define what white is problematic. That's a pragmatic problem. From a philosophical frame, it doesn't make any sense because there's nothing about being a member of any given race that seems to be good as such. So, yeah. I got to see the fabled I'm Not a Racist But live. Neat. Wow. Cody, you're killing me. All right, Cody, once again, I wasn't saying I was any of these things. I was trying to explain various perspectives. At least from my own definition of here is what this means, and here is what this means, and here is why this is good, and here's why this is good. And then it said, but racism doesn't make any sense. So I wasn't really taking a position just now on the merits of globalism versus nationalism. I was, from my own perspective, defining what they are. I was trying to define the good aspects of both. And then I said, that makes sense, but what doesn't make sense is defining it based on race. So it's like, why is this always pulling teeth? So it's like the second time this stream I've had to pull teeth with you guys. You know, I just had a whole discussion on here's the law as it relates to electors and the electoral college and how that does it. It's like, so you're advocating for this. I'm like, I'm explaining it. Here's what nationalism means, and here's what globalism means to me. And here's why both are good in their respective domains. So you're saying you're not a racist but. Frustrating. You want to go screaming into the void? Based on this chat, I kind of do. It's becoming a Let's Troll Kurt stream a little bit, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So I don't think nationalism is inherently bad. I'm not sure globalism is inherently bad. I think extreme versions of both are probably problematic. There's probably somewhere in between the extreme positions. So it's probably not good to be extreme nationalist or extreme globalist, but they both kind of make sense. And it's not necessarily like uniform. You can take different perspectives even on different issues. So you could be, for example, at least theoretically, you could be more nationalist on economic policy, but less nationalist on defense policy. So you don't necessarily have to even be uniform across the board. I like how apparently I'm being extreme patriotism can be a problem. Like that's where jingoism comes in, right? When you extreme patriotism is just jingoistic. So yeah, that's a problem there too. You probably want to be able to admit to aspects of your country that are flawed, because no country is perfect. I need a gimbal selfie stick. I'm just doing a casual stream. I'm just holding in my phone while I'm talking to you guys. Extreme anything is bad. Only the cis steal in absolutes, right? Yeah. The one that's getting a little bit harder these days to define actually is conservatives versus liberalism. Because on a traditional scale, like on traditional definition of liberalism, like the conservatives are more liberal these days, which is, I guess, makes sense because at this point, the liberalism is the thing the conservatives are trying to conserve. So it kind of makes sense, but it's weird. So like, what is liberalism and how is it distinct from conservatism? So yeah, because now you just have progressivism, which is anti-liberal. So yeah, maybe it was never conservative versus liberal. Maybe it was conservative versus progressive. Maybe that was the thing the whole time. I don't have a car right now, so I can't travel anywhere. Nor do I particularly want to be honest. Yeah, people gravitate towards the familiar. That's true. No, Crowfeather says different take than your usual stream. More relaxed, more personal. I'm pretty relaxed. I'll have to say that. You quote the prequels, but you don't watch The Mandalorian? Yeah. Extremism in defense of liberty is no vice. Moderation in pursuit of justice is no virtue. I'm not sure I agree with that, to be honest. Extremism in defense of liberty is no vice. Moderation in pursuit of justice is no virtue. I think I definitely disagree with the second half of that moderation is not a virtue when it comes to justice. Because I don't know if moderation is exactly the right word for it, and maybe I'm not really disagreeing with the sentiment. But true justice is complicated. The Star Trek Next Generation episode by the same name, Justice, where Wesley Crusher goes onto the planet, which has the death penalty for everything. And so he, trespasses on someone's yard and crushes some flowers while I'm catching a football or something. It's like, how about give him the death penalty? So it's like, so I don't know if you'd view that as unmoderate or just too simplistic, but either way, justice is complicated. There's a really good series on YouTube. I've mentioned it before. If you're looking for something to do, I recommend it because I've watched it a couple times. It's from Harvard. The teacher's name is Michael Sandel, and it's called Justice. So if you just Google Harvard and Justice and Michael Sandel, I'm sure you'll find it. He recorded a whole semester of his class and put it on YouTube. And it goes through many different theories and many different frames of justice. I find it illuminating because it shows why justice is so complicated. And also, for that matter, shows why law is so complicated because trying to deal with many different frames of justice. So he recorded an entire semester, so it's like, because they're like half hour each, and I think there's 13 parts. So it's like 6-7 hours, but it's really worth your time. I've watched it a couple times. So moderation and pursuit of justice is no virtue. I think I disagree. I think justice has to be moderate, or at least. And there's also the ultimate idea that justice has to be tempered with mercy, right? So justice sometimes what the law requires, or sometimes what justice requires, has to be tempered with mercy. So I think I disagree with the second half of that. Extremism in defense of liberty is no vice. I think it's probably wrong too, because if you take it to the literal end of the page, then like you're kind of going for an anarchy. And so like liberty, I think even liberty has to be tempered, if not by other people's liberty. There's other considerations there too. So I think I disagree with the quote. Tyranny is tyranny, no abstract labels apply? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, full-on libertarianism, I think, falls apart too. Yeah, I think full-on libertarianism falls apart. I knew this channel was welcoming debate, but was thinking to step into philosophy. We can discuss philosophy too, right? I mean, justice and law is built on philosophy too. So yeah, we can discuss philosophy. There can be no justice as long as laws are absolute. Yeah, exactly. To moderate justice is to say you should allow some manner of injustice. To moderate for justice would say you should allow some injustice. I think you kind of have to be quite honest, because chasing down that last bit of justice can be actually counterproductive. And I think you can see that in large part by the woke culture and the extreme left these days, because, right, the extreme left was pursuing justice in a lot of domains, women's rights, minority rights, and a lot of things. But they've gotten to the point where they're ghost hunting. And that isn't to say that there isn't some injustice left. There is some injustice, but their pursuit of perfect justice is in itself becoming an injustice. So I think perfect justice may not be possible. It may not be possible. And I think toleration of some kind of injustice may be necessary to achieve justice, because pursuing that last remaining bit of injustice actually creates more injustice. It creates more injustice than you're trying to solve. So it becomes counterproductive. So there's a point somewhere where pursuing injustice itself creates more injustice than the injustice you're trying to solve. So I think some amount of injustice might be necessarily tolerable, because otherwise you run into injustice. I'm going to switch the camera just so you can enjoy the view while I talk to you. How about that? Yeah, so I think some amount of justice may be required. Yeah, and then of course our criminal justice system is premised also, as someone was pointing out, on some injustice. Like sometimes we let the guilty go free. Yeah, it's like trying to solve bugs in computer software. Yeah, at some point, trying to solve the bugs becomes counterproductive. Well, I've been streaming for 1 hour. It's been fun. Maybe I'll try to do some sort of joint streaming later. Try to do some sort of joint stream later where I watch the chat and we'll do the Supreme Court thing. But that's been enough for me. And I'm going to sign off. So I've been fun. So, yeah, I will talk to you later, guys. Hope all is well. Peace. Goodbye.